So that the sign that says every life is precious, do you disagree with that one?
In the context that you're using it, yeah. Law above the cop.
Well, we faced some pretty unsavoury opponents on Saturday, and there were multiple threats of violence online before our event. What did the police do? Well, we'll come on to that at the end when I talk about three-tier policing. But what we've got here is our latest pro-life demonstration in a buffer zone, this time at the Sandyford clinic in Glasgow, where 4,707 unborn lives were ended in the year 2023. We're in the buffer zone. The buffer zone doesn't apply because the clinic's closed. The police know that. I emailed the police beforehand. It's an email address I've used frequently for communication with the police, but they didn't reply. And, well, we'll come back to the police later on. So there are about 12 of us. We stood basically in silence. We didn't try and have speeches because they would just end up as a shouting match. So we stood with our placards and flags. We had messages that were hard-hitting and inflammatory, such as, all lives are precious. You can see our placards here. There are about 6 professional photographers there. I haven't seen any media reports yet, but there's certainly, let's say, there are a lot of photographers and a couple of reporters there.
Take your glasses off, you loser! Wave the flag at least, don't just stand there. Come on, if you believe in it. Absolute coward. Get your glasses off. Get your glasses off, you loser.
This man stood there shouting at us for the whole hour, taunting, insulting, and one of our people with us, an elderly lady, she got a bit tired standing, so she just went to sit on a step a little bit along the road, and when she did that, this man just yelled abuse and taunts and insults at her. He said, you look like you're 104, you're probably senile, you probably don't understand what you're here for, this sort of thing. And the other counter-protesters there laughed along with this. When he was doing this to this lady, I just went over and just tried to say to him, do you think that's a bit below the belt, like hurling abuse at an elderly lady because she needs to go and sit down? But I was totally wasting my breath. We basically ignored him. We didn't interact with him during the event, but he was there to be obnoxious, and he succeeded. So that the sign that says every life is precious, do you disagree with that one?
In the context that you're using it, yeah.
Okay, so why is it that you think that the lives of unborn children are not precious?
Because the point that you can have an abortion is not an unborn child. It's a clump of cells.
Oh, okay, so what's the point where you think it's okay to have an abortion?
Let's talk law, okay?
Okay. Uh-huh.
In Scotland, it's legally okay to have an abortion up to 24 weeks.
Or up to birth in the case of disability.
Why do you think, let me ask you some questions.
Sure.
Why do you think it's okay for you lot to stand right outside a clinic within a buffer zone, ignoring the law, projecting your absolute hate for women and your misogyny across the internet, purely because you feel you've got a God-given right to tell women what to do with their lives and bodies?
Okay, I have to say,
at what point is it okay for you and your little cronies to make women feel horrible about the decisions they have to make in life? You have no place to judge a woman, yet you place all of that onto women based on your nonsense bigotry.
Right, okay, that was quite a speech, but it was totally unrelated to the question.
It's not unrelated. Your people are standing right outside a clinic that provides abortion. How is what I have said not related to that? You are trying to intimidate women not to have abortions. That is related to everything I have just said. You are absolutely disgraceful.
My question was, why do you think the life of a disabled baby...
I've never said a life of disabled baby is any different to anything else. I am arguing the fact that under law and under biology, that when women are having an abortion, it's legal to do that. It's safe to do that. If you take away the law, what happens then? Women have to go and find abortion that isn't safe and isn't legal.
Okay,
because it doesn't mean that suddenly we're all going to be happy having the children we never wanted. There's evidence of that in America. They changed the law in America. Abortions didn't go down. It just meant illegal abortions went up.
The idea of discussion,
so it doesn't change anything.
The idea of discussion is you listen to each other.
I don't want discussion with someone who keeps trying to put words in my mouth. So I will tell you my words and you will listen to them and you can feel free to post them. But I am not having you try to have a discussion with me and then try to twist what I am saying.
I'm trying to give you the opportunity.
The conversation's over.
Well, Because I asked you a question about why disabled unborn lives don't matter.
You put words in my mouth.
And
now, please walk on.
You couldn't answer.
Please walk on.
You couldn't answer. Did you want to try? You don't want to try. Okay.
I have given you plenty.
You can see there, this lady just was not going to listen, just spewing out platitudes, won't answer questions. And then basically what we've got there is a deep emotional reaction, which I was talking about in my recent video. I think a lot of the reaction you get when you have any sort of pro-life presence, it does stir up very deep and strong emotions within people because of their personal experiences. And I think that's probably what we're having here. But it's that the haughty attitude, so sure, she doesn't need to make sense, doesn't need to listen, doesn't need to think about what she's saying. If she just mouths off at me, she's done her job, and not the slightest hint that perhaps she needs to consider or engage in any sort of civilised discussion.
Off the cock, lob off the cock.
Well, I think as soon as someone stands there singing that, their credibility is totally shot. I mean, this just runs and runs. These crazy conspiracy theories about the Scottish Family Party being funded from America, funded from Russia. I mean, people have the idea generally that, crazy conspiracy theories, that's a thing from the extreme right of politics. But there are an awful lot of wild conspiracy theories through the progressive left as well. So, just to keep these conspiracy theories on the boil, do join the family party or become a regular donor. You can do that via the link below, because that's where our money comes from. And the more money we've got, the crazier these people will get, assuming that our money is coming by direct debit from Vladimir Putin. I said about these people, afterwards, as often happens at our events, some of our people went and chatted to these people when things had calmed down, when they'd calmed down a bit, and entered into lengthy discussions. I haven't heard any feedback about those, but I think that's great. I think that's a really important part of what we do. So to summarise, we were obviously civilised. The counter-protesters were not. Okay, that's par for the course. That's what we expect. I mean, taunting an elderly lady in the street, suggesting that she's senile, would that be a crime? I would suggest it probably would be. That could be abuse or harassment, but the police weren't there. But anyway, that brings us on to the next topic, which is the police. So when I emailed the police telling them what we're doing, I also sent them a Reddit comment discussion thread where our event had been discussed and people had made various threats of violence against us. Here they are. So the headline: the vile Scottish Family Party are planning to target the Sandyford clinic on Saturday. I actually despise these creeps. I hate remembering they exist. All right, we're just getting warmed up here. Scum. Well, that's my afternoon sorted. I'll bring my satanic hymn book. And here we go into the things a little bit more sinister. Mentally unwell idiots. I hope they get a good doing. Is that incitement to violence? Follow them all over the place and make them feel as uncomfortable as possible at every turn. Intimidation. Water balloons full of at the ready. I prefer glitter and child-safe glue mixed with water. Okay, threat, statement of intention to commit a crime. If I lived in Glasgow, I'd be pouring bottles of urine at their feet. Okay, incitement again, could you say? Bunch of nut jobs need a good baton over the bonds. Incitement to violence. Again, water balloons full of urine. We should all just hang the old up on lampposts when seen in person. Death threat, maybe. Maybe not particularly credible, but that's the sort of implication there. Well, that's a lovely image I didn't have in my head before. Okay, other people taking up the course. Right, what's that flapping in the wind? So they're imagining the bodies blown in the wind having been hung. I'm holding a pro-egg throwing demonstration there at the same time. Again, yeah, threat or incitement to attack. You can't protect them from a flying bottle of Bucky. Again, that's a threat or incitement. Counter-protest with pepper spray, more of the same. So surely some of the things said there are crimes in themselves, let alone the threats to what might actually happen on the day. So they were sent to the police. I also told the police what had happened in Edinburgh. We had placards stolen, punches were thrown, were followed along the street. So I suggested to the police that some sort of presence might be advisable. But there was none. A police car did drive past at one point, but they didn't even appear to look over at what was happening. So the police decided that they didn't need to be there. Were those credible threats? I would say yes. Yeah. That those things could well have materialised. Things could have turned very ugly. Now, I haven't reported these as a crime, just to clarify. I mean, part of the reason for that is, well, I've done that before, and it's a waste of time. The police just don't act on them. Why don't the police want to act? Well, it's partly because they don't want to get embroiled in the buffer zone controversy. When you've got Gillian McKay, MSP, saying to the police, get and arrest these people, because I understand my law, and they're breaking my law, you need to go and arrest them. And the police are thinking, well, they're not breaking the law, but if we go along and don't arrest them, there'll be controversy. Gillian McKay will criticise us. Maybe it's best if we don't go. Even though those people are under significant threat of mistreatment, shall we say, we don't want to have any controversy, so we're not going to go. And the other issue, of course, is that we are the unfavoured ones in terms of the correct opinion, alignment with the government's values. Now, just by comparison, you've heard those messages posted online relating to the Scottish Family Party's event. Now, let's just have a quick reminder of messages online that got people convicted. And these are obviously to do with Humza Yousaf, who seems to regard Police Scotland as his personal police force, and Police Scotland seem to regard themselves as Humza Yousaf's personal police force. So each one of these got someone convicted. Here we go. Okay, you're a racial term. Don't tell us white guys what we can and can't do. Person convicted. You're not from my country and you're selling the big issue. Maybe you were, but the rest of your people weren't. Effing benefits locust. Charity begins at home. Convicted. Humza Yousaf, good Scots name. I'm sure he's 90% backing Muslim killers. Be having a whip round for terrorist families soon. Convicted. Only because you're a racist piece of scum. We don't need people like you in Scotland stirring up racism in Scotland, you racist piece of. Right. So each of those, I would say, was much milder than things that were directed at us. Now, I would emphasise all those things that were said to Humza Yousaf. I disagree with every one of them. They were all terrible things for someone to say, and I've got no sympathy with them whatsoever. But what we had were threats and incitements to violence. The things to Humza Yousaf, they were just not very nice. So here we go. So 3-tier policing. What are the 3 tiers of policing in Scotland, it seems? Well, the top tier, you've got Humza Yousaf and the goodies. They're not just worthy of protection, they're worthy of extra vigilant protection. Extra strong, dynamic, on the front foot, let's try and get these people nailed type protection. And then there's other people who will find themselves punished more harshly because their crimes relate to a cause that the government particularly don't like. Now, in those cases, very possibly I would entirely disagree with what they say in those cases, but there are people who are punished more harshly. And then the very bottom of 3-tier policing is people like the Scottish Family Party, because we're really thinking the wrong things. We're on the wrong side. We disagree with the government's ideology. So the police are not willing to protect us from online comments, and even seem unwilling to protect us physically from what seem to be credible threats of violence. I'm just going to look at a few more things people posted online as well, just out of interest. Here we go. I know, right, instead of trying to force women to birth unwanted children, maybe these nutters should be spending more energy fostering and adopting kids already in need of help. Now, the people who were there, I don't know all of them, I don't know the family background of all of them, but I can tell you between 2 of the people there, they foster and adopt 8 children. Okay, all right, that's that one dealt with. The 2-child limit on benefits, they're saying if you're so pro-life, surely you'd want to abolish the 2-child limit. Well, that is indeed our policy. So that's that one dealt with. 4,707 seems like a made-up number. That's nearly 13 a day, 7 days a week. That sounds unbelievable, thinks this person. Well, that's the Scottish Government statistics. And when they publish them very, very late. I think it's maybe in October they might come out. We'll probably find it's gone up significantly for 2024. And this last one, this is a bit sad. There are a few posts like this. Could we put the case, all lives are as valuable as yours, all lives are precious. And a few people replied saying, well, I don't think my life's valuable. I don't think my life's precious. And this one here, all lives are as valuable as yours. Well, I don't value mine. Your move. Now, partly you think maybe that's just people trying to be clever and trying to make the next move in the discussion. But judging by quite a few of the comments, I think that's actually their genuine opinion. That is what they're thinking. They're thinking their life is worthless. And it's quite sad to read. Say, it wasn't just this one. There are a few like that. So that was, quite sad to read. Now, this one we've come across before. How about you keep your Christian fascist BS where it belongs, back with the, oh dear, what a sherry, okay. Shameful, yeah. You're okay with corporal punishment of weans, but God forbid someone gets an abortion. Get it, okay. I mean, how about that for backwards thinking? So in other words, giving a kid a smack because they've been naughty, well, that's just beyond the pale. That's an appalling thing to allow. But killing children in the womb, well, obviously, that's absolutely fine. I mean, what a total inversion of morality. So, thanks everyone who came. I really appreciated your presence and your courage being there with us. Do join us the next time. We'd love to see more of you there on the streets. Now, the Sandyford Clinic, a couple of years ago, we bricked it up by taking some cardboard boxes with like brick wrapping paper on and pile them up at the door, primarily about transgender so-called treatments for young people. That issue is not over. The Sandyford Clinic, they're still going to be prescribing puberty blockers, but this time it will be part of an experiment, a formal experiment on children. So maybe we'll go back there before too long on that issue as well, because that's a battle that is far from won. But in the meantime, as I say, do join the Scottish Family Party. There's a link below, and thanks for watching.